Hello and welcome back to the Primary Importance podcast. I'm your host, Kat Cauchi, and today I'm really excited to be welcoming on Keren Mitchell. We're going to be talking a lot about social action today, so that'll be a new topic for the podcast, and I think it was something that our listeners will really appreciate and want to get working on in their schools. So let's welcome Keren on. Hi, Keren. It's lovely to see you.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. What about yourself?
Good, yeah, really well, thanks.
Good. So how's your week been so far?
It has been good, yeah, not too bad. Almost at the weekend, but it's going well.
Yay. The tail end now.
Yeah.
So would you mind just introducing yourself to our listeners and a little bit about SuperKind as well?
Sure. So my name's Keren. I'm one of the co-founders of SuperKind, which is a social action platform for primary schools. And we say that our aim is to help teachers to educate, inspire, and empower young children towards social action and charity work. And so SuperKind is full of resources and lesson plans and whatnot to help teachers bring social action into the classroom in an easy and meaningful way.
Wow, sounds brilliant. Captured that really nicely in such a short little intro. I love it. So tell me a little bit about why you co-founded SuperKind and how it all started.
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I started it together, and it was kind of started, we were sort of inspired by the example of our own children, and we saw, so when my daughter was about 5, she completely off her own back wrote a letter to Theresa May, who was the Prime Minister at the time, with a lovely little booklet that she had designed all about climate change. And she got a reply from kind of someone in the cabinet office. And it really kind of inspired in her a sort of sense of social action. And she went on to do kind of fundraisers, and she did a kind of assembly on gender equality. And it kind of really, we saw the benefit that it was having for her. And it also is kind of seeing that also inspired my son to kind of do similar, and he's done his own kind of fundraisers for stuff that he cares about. And we were just kind of really impressed to see how social action was kind of enhancing them as people. And so it kind of got us thinking, because at the same time, they weren't doing much of that kind of stuff at school. Okay, they'd be doing, Comic Relief Day or Jeans for Jeans, but it was often quite sort of transactional. Maybe, you put a pound in the bucket and maybe have a brief assembly on it, but there was no kind of deep understanding, and there was definitely no kind of sense of agency. School told them what to do, gave them a brief talk about it, and that was the end of it. So we started thinking about whether there was an opportunity to engage children of a young age more actively in social action. And then we kind of went down a big rabbit hole, and we've worked with teachers and academics to build SuperKind, really to try to cover sort of everything social action-y related for schools and for young children.
That's amazing. I love how it's inspired by your own children as well. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's good. And we've now, delved into the research and whatnot. And there's so much research about the benefits of social action to young children in terms of, it builds empathy and tolerance and open-mindedness and leadership skills. And I think the really big one for us is agency. Like, it can really help children with a sense of agency, which is really important, now more than ever, when they have, things like climate anxiety, and it's been proven that the antidote to anxiety is action. And so teaching children that they do have agency and they can make an impact is actually really powerful for their overall well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of an article we had in our latest magazine about sustainability. And within that, they were tackling that climate anxiety by giving children agency in different initiatives going on in school. Yeah. So it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, it's so important. Exactly. It's kind of the key in all of this. And so when we talk about social action needing to be meaningful in schools, so there's lots of research as well that says that if you engage children in meaningful social action, particularly when they're under 10, they're going to be twice as likely to be habitually charitable when they grow up. So it's really important getting children at this age, because we're kind of helping create like the next generation of change makers and hopefully charitable adults. So I guess the key thing is, like, what does meaningful mean? We've worked a lot with a academic at the University of Kent called Dr. Alison Boddy, who's probably the UK's sort of expert on philanthropy in children. And so she says, the key thing about it being meaningful is that children have choice. So they're choosing, the cause they care about, and they're choosing the way that they respond. It's really important because you have, some children, everyone brings their own skills to it. Some children love to do fundraising. Some children would love to stand up in front of their class and give a presentation. Some would hate that and would love to, go litter picking on the weekend or volunteer at an animal shelter, or and it's all equally valid. There's some children who we feature on our site who are inventors. A girl who was 12, created a device to filter plastic out of the ocean. Like,
Oh wow.
there's such a range of social action, and just to say to everyone, okay, put a pound, bring in a pound, or whatever it may be, stops it having the full benefit.
Yeah,
so that's kind of what we mean when we talk about meaningful.
Yeah, if you just tell someone it's important, that doesn't really get across the message of why, and they don't feel the importance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a choice, and obviously a lot of the children we did passionate about different things. So it's nice to use that passion to help others. Whether it's animals or people, or it's great.
Yeah, exactly. So SuperKind is built around, it's kind of primarily built around the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, but then we also talk about kind of current issues of the day. So something like cost of living crisis, or the war in Ukraine, or some things that are more contemporary, because exactly different children care about different issues as well. So just just to say, everyone, we have to raise money for this water charity, that might turn off lots of children in the year.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the more current issues as well are the ones that are impacting on the children, and they often feel powerless because everything's kind of up to the adults. But if they can have some agency, something they can do, that will really empower them.
That's absolutely it. And I'm pretty much yet to meet a child who, if they learn about an issue, doesn't have that natural desire to help. But they say, well, what can I do? How can I help? So really SuperKind's about leading children on that journey, from learning about something and wanting to help, to kind of being inspired by the sense that they can help, to actually showing them, okay, these are the charities you could support, this is what you could do.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit more about why social action is important in schools? I know you said you've looked at a lot of research, so it might be good to talk about some of those aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, so actually they talk about it's long been talked about that there's a double benefit of social action. So it's obviously the kind of communities and causes that children raise money for, or are donating to, or giving their time to. But then there's also the benefit on the children, and that's things like open-mindedness and empathy and tolerance and leadership, and even overall, it's been well proven that general well-being is raised by service to others. So it really kind of ticks a lot of boxes across the board in that way. It fits very nicely in the sort of character development part of Ofsted's sort of framework, as well as active citizenship as well. But actually, more recently, there's been a couple of articles about a third benefit of social action in schools, which is the benefit to teachers, which is really interesting. So the RSA did a lot of research into how teachers felt about teaching social action, and they found that teachers felt really empowered and energized, and a sense of passion teaching some of these things, and felt they could be more kind of creative, and this slight departure from some of the core syllabus. And teachers also said that it helped enhance their sense of community, both within the school, the kind of wider school community, and in terms of their local community, because it encourages schools to do things like food drives, or get out and litter pick, or whatever it may be. So there's really a whole host of benefits for people, like in the moment, doing the social action. And then, as we've talked about, it helps the development of the child long term. It's making them, giving them that sense of agency, and being charitable, which is so important when they're adults, but it's also important when they're looking to, move on to other schools or
Yeah.
jobs. And then we've also found it's really great for some children who, maybe aren't as academically focused, struggling a bit. It can be another string to someone's
Yeah.
bow. It might be, someone might be great at organizing, you know, football tournament with their friends to raise money for charity, and but terrible at maths and English.
Mm.
And it's just, it's a great way for children to learn that, there's another pathway here to, you know to doing stuff, because
Yeah.
it's stuff that they can do now. They don't have to wait until they're a grown up.
Mm. Yeah,
So
utilising the different skills they have.
yeah, so it's a really big contribution to the idea of educating the whole child.
Mm. Yeah, and I can imagine that's why teachers often feel quite empowered with it, because that's something that obviously a lot of teachers are really passionate about. They're very pedagogy driven. So having the opportunity to really focus on the whole child is always a good thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what we found is that so the vast majority of teachers believe that social action should, be part of the curriculum, and has a place to be taught, and they want to teach it. The problem is a lack of resources, mainly,
Yeah.
particularly at this kind of primary level, because the content's just not there, or wasn't there. And we found that, some schools, there'd be a really passionate teacher who had done lots of social action work before, who could, maybe bring some of their own resources. But often other teachers who wanted to teach it were just too busy, and not going to let the kids go wild on the internet looking at some of these causes. So, our primary thing was to create these resources to make it really easy for teachers to bring this stuff into the classroom.
Yeah, no, that's really important, because we know that teachers are often time poor, resource poor, so
Of course.
the main thing to tackle. Yeah, so can you give examples of what social action looks like in schools?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about it is that there's such a range, and of course, a lot of schools are doing it anyway, and teaching children about climate change or whatever it may be. But it can be on our site. We've got 12 different types of social action. So there's the classic one. I mean, fundraising is the kind of classic one, and actually, we built a fundraising platform just for schools.
Oh, that's really useful.
It's, that's popular, and fundraising, something that a lot of schools do. But then there's everything from donating, so that could be donating food at harvest day, or it could be donating old clothes, old toys to local charity shops. But then there's things which are not based on, money or having things to donate, and that's everything from, writing a letter or an email to someone in power. It could be your council or local MP or head teacher. We've got things like, raising awareness through making posters or giving assemblies in your school. There's such a range of ways to do it at school and at home. And as I say, a lot of schools are doing these kind of things already, but sometimes they can be helped a lot by the resources and someone communicating to children in a way that really guides them the whole way through. Our aim was for this to be as light touch as possible for teachers or for parents who are using it. And every time that a child needs to say, "Oh, like, how do I do this? Can you help me do this?" that takes agency away from them. So we've really tried to make it so that a child from 7, really, all the way through to kind of 13, can come on the site and go through the whole journey themselves and find causes they care about and charities they want to support, and be inspired by case studies of other children, and then learn from our toolkits, what action they want to take and how to take it, all by themselves in a sort of safe and engaging environment.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Have you got any specific examples from some of the schools that you worked with as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's such a mix. So we've got schools so we have a sort of SuperKind club, which is a sort of like a change maker club program, which is a 5-week program, which is a kind of structured framework for taking children from, learning about a cause, choosing a cause, learning about what the issue is, what the solutions are, and how they can have an impact, and then learning about other children who have impacted that cause, and then choosing an action themselves and then delivering the action. That's really nice to see schools go through that. Either sometimes it's an after school club, some schools have done it as a sort of PSHE for a half a term and going through that full journey and kind of teaching children how to be change makers. That's really great. Other schools, we've seen them use our resources as a sort of central hub for. So one school recently was doing a module on global health inequality. So they used our content as the content to kind of educate the kids on. And again, the term finished with kids choosing a way to respond. And that had everything from, so some children ended up setting up a sports club at their school, like an after school sports club. And some children in the class did a fundraiser for some health charities. Some volunteered at a local old people's home. So kind of created a real range of actions. But then we have other schools just use us for fundraising, for example. We've got lots of tools on there for teachers to make the fundraising kind of really easy. Or schools use us to choose good charities with which to support, or we've been described many times as a sort of one-stop shop for social action, and in a way there's almost sort of too much on the site. It's kind of like it's but it's designed that you can dip in and dip out of, so it's really it's being used in a pretty wide range of ways.
I imagine having different charities on there is useful as well, because sometimes people really want to help, but they want to make sure they're going about it in the right way.
Exactly. And then the main thing that we now do, so we run an award called the Social Impact Schools Award, which is designed to be a sort of independent accreditation for schools to be able to show that they value social action. This is what they do, which obviously looks great for teacher for parents and inspectors and teachers and kids, and hopefully it will encourage more schools to engage in social action. And then we give the school lots of resources and lots of kind of assembly ideas each month tied into particular awareness days. And then we have a sort of whole system for teachers to manage the social actions in their class. So when children take part in social action, they can log it on the site. It will award the children like online badges that the teachers can then print off as stickers to go on certificates. And it creates a whole sort of integrated approach, and kind of everything social action is in one place. And we have a few hundred schools signed up for that already, even though it's just literally started about 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And so that is, I think, going to be the main way that schools sort of engage with us this year, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So in terms of, so we talked about how it's beneficial. What can school leaders do though to give opportunities for this? So obviously we said, especially in primary, it's not really within the curriculum or anything like that. So that definitely needs that time and focus. So what can school leaders do to support?
It fits in so many places, but nowhere sort of completely specifically. Obviously you have to teach this. So I guess there's two ways to do it. There's lots of curriculum links, obvious stuff like geography teaching about water, or science teaching about climate change, or English writing letters. There's lots and lots of ways that it could be brought in by subject teachers, and we think it's a really enriching way to do that. And then we find that in some schools it's being taught in cross-curricular ways, which is great. For example, the global health example, they were looking at global health and they attacked it from lots of different subjects. Or of course it fits most neatly into PSHE, and that's where a lot of schools end up delivering it if they want to do that kind of real focus. But as I say, most schools already have time allocated to it, and or allocated to these kind of things in some shape or form. And often it's just about making sure that you have the best resources and you know how to engage the kids in the most meaningful way. And like little things like you're giving kids badges as a reward for doing their social action. It just makes it more engaging for them in the time that you're already put aside for this stuff.
Absolutely. What tips would you give educators for teaching their pupils about what social action is and why it matters? So coming back to that meaning.
Well, as I say, I think agency is the key thing. So, as far as possible, We encourage teachers to kind of ask at the start of the lessons when they're going to be delivering social action, kind of who has the power to make change in the world, who's going to make a difference. And typically kids say, like adults, rich people, the government. Elon Musk seems to come out a lot. David Attenborough comes up a lot. And then, we encourage teachers to then show particularly the kind of case studies that we have on the site. So we've got over 50 case studies of different kids who've done amazing stuff. And then at the end of the lessons, when you ask the kids again and they have a sense like, oh, actually children can make a difference, children can change the world. And then, encouraging them when they see the actions that they have and the impact that they can have, that can really make a difference. So it's all about that sense of agency. So wherever possible, again, we've tried to build the site so that in an easiest way as possible, children can have that sense of agency when they're learning about something, when they're choosing how they're going to respond to it. So that's definitely the kind of number one tip, is foster agency as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really important, definitely. And so we talked a lot about how you support schools with their philanthropy and social action. Are there any other things that you support them that we've not talked about that you wanted to share?
Sorry. Only the only just to touch about the fundraising platform again. So it's actually the only fundraising platform in the world, I believe, across charity fundraising platform for children under 13. So schools can't use things like Just Giving because you have to be 13 or over to sign up. And there's kind of lots of privacy and data protection issues around those kind of sites. So we kind of saw that a lot of schools were still using pen and paper for fundraising, kind of sponsorship activities, or and that's a real hassle. Donations get pledged and not given, or kids leave money at the bottom of the bag, and the teacher's got to count all the money up and take it to the bank, and then there's no gift aid. So we built a fundraiser. It's taken us 2 years, and we built a fundraising platform kind of from the bottom up, just designed for children, so it's as easy for them to use and fun and meaningful and obviously safe. So it means that schools can use it legally as well.
Yes.
And children can choose from over 30,000 different charities and good causes to raise money for on the platform. And there's lots of tools for teachers, like campaigns that they can connect the kids to really easily. So that's a great way for schools that are doing fundraising. And we by no means, we want to move away from this sense that fundraising is social action, because it's just a tiny part of it, but
it's
schools
just
are doing fundraising, exactly, or even fundraising for themselves, or the PTA fundraising for the school. It's really easy to add the school to the platform to be the beneficiary. So we support. That's quite a big way that we're supporting schools.
Great. So it's so unique.
Yeah, exactly. As well as the award that we talked about as well.
That's great. Tell me a bit more about the awards.
Yeah, so it's if schools carry out a set number of social actions per year, kind of per student, then at the end of the year they get the award. And we're giving resources and lesson plans and ideas kind of across the year
help them get to that.
Exactly, because actually social action is so much easier and less scary than it might initially seem. And as I said, a lot of them are doing it
especially if it's in steps, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just kind of pulling it all together, having this central platform that they can use to keep track of what the kids are doing and award kids badges, and track it. And so that's just a really great way to recognize what schools are doing and be able to show that externally, because we think it's really, really important. And there's so many schools out there that are doing such an amazing job. So it's really nice to give that the same sort of recognition that some other stuff is getting. We see more and more that parents care about it, and inspectors care about it, and even staff members care about it. So it's amazing to see the actions that schools are taking already, and thousands of kids doing stuff on the site. So it's really nice to see.
Yeah, that's brilliant. How long have you been going now?
Well, SuperKind itself has been, our sort of resources have been live for about 9 months. It's been about 2 years in the making. And then the fundraising platform has just been live for about, just before the summer holidays.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Mhm.
And then the Social Impact Awards just kicked off
Just kicked
at the
off,
start
yeah.
of this term.
Wow, yes, it's all very fresh, very
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, it's all pretty fresh and busy at the moment.
Mm. But it's lovely that you've already got so many schools signed up, so it shows there's obviously a big interest in social action in
Yeah, it's
schools. And
great,
like you
and
say, they're
it's
already doing it. It's just helping them do it, facilitating that.
yeah, and it's really nice also to see it's such a mix across the country, and we've got all
Mm.
all sorts of schools from those which are in relatively privileged areas to those which are in really underprivileged areas,
Yeah,
and social action is going to look different in every type
of
of school,
course.
and
Yeah.
in some cases, schools are teaching children about like privilege and about helping others, but in other cases, it's children are living this experience themselves, and it's really about teaching agency.
Mm, that's
You
very
go into
true.
some schools and talk about, for example, writing a letter to your local MP,
Mm,
and the teachers have said, our children don't even feel like they have the right to write a letter to someone in a position of power. So it's
that's so
about,
sad.
it's really far upstream. It's about teaching
Yeah.
kids, no matter what your background is, no matter what
Mhm.
your resources or means are, you have, the potential for impact.
Yeah, giving
So
everything a voice.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, that's amazing. So my last question really was just, what is the best way for schools to contact you and find out more information?
yeah. So superkind.org is the website, and if they just go on there and go to the schools tab, and that's hopefully a fairly easy to understand sort of introduction to how they can get involved with, be it the Social Impact Award or use a fundraising platform, or we've just got tons of free resources and lesson plans on there that they can just sort of dip into and out of. So the website superkind.org is the best way to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It sounds like absolutely everything's there. You said one-stop shop, so
I hope so. It seems to be, so it's nice.
yeah. Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much, Karen. It was so lovely to speak to you and learn all about SuperKind.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.